I'm going to be responding to the claim that the easy availability of guns in particular states rather than strict gun control negatively affects the United States as a nation. And the secondary claims for this were that the lack of gun control allows weapons to fall into the wrong hands, the lack of gun control promotes violence, and the lack of gun control causes fear to citizens. So the problem with this proposition is that it's not straightforward because there's two clauses, and it's less clear, and it's also vague in which states need more control, and it's not clear if it's talking about the laws that need to be changed or if people's ownership of guns is a problem in the United States. So my counterclaim to this is that current gun control laws in the United States ensure people's safety. So the first claim that I'm responding to is that guns fall into the wrong hands. And this was backed up by Arizona's gun laws, among the most lenient in the country, makes it easy to purchase a weapon in the state. And if there were stricter regulations on guns, then criminals would be the only people with guns because they get guns through the black market, and citizens who are trying to protect themselves wouldn't be able to purchase guns if they were banned from everyone. So John Stossel, from a reporter at Fox and was also working for ABC, reported that a lady named Susanna and her parents were out dining in Texas for lunch, and a man began shooting with a handgun, and her parents were 2 of 23 people killed at the scene. And Susanna had a handgun in her car, but she wasn't permitted to carry the gun, so she was confident that she could have stopped the shooting spree and to help save lives. But since then, Texas has changed the law to be less restrictive. So this shows that guns help in self-defense. And the second point of the claim of fact argument was that guns promote violence. And this isn't true because the law of guns isn't meant to give people the weapons to kill people and commit crimes. And if criminals are going to commit crimes, they're going to do it anyways, and getting a gun isn't going to be their biggest challenge. So a website, PAHP.org, Pennsylvanians Against Handgun Violence, said that national gun laws ensure that no convicted felons, businesses, children, delinquents, mentally ill, or drug addicts are allowed to purchase, carry, sell, or use a gun, and that's a federal crime. So the law is showing that the law isn't meant to give guns to the wrong people, it's meant to help people in different situations. So she also mentioned that there were many accidents with children, and that is a big problem, but it's not the government's fault, it's the owner's fault for not locking up their guns and keeping them in a safe place. So this doesn't help the argument of gun control. And in an ABC News poll, 73% of Americans agreed that the Second Amendment guarantees the right to individual guns. So it shows that Americans believe that people have the right to have a gun in their home. And the third claim I am refuting is that the lack of gun control causes fear to citizens. And citizens are actually safer with guns in their possession. And this is shown in John Locke's book, More Guns, Less Crime, that 10% of crime fell 10% after less strict gun laws were passed, and it was most likely because criminals were afraid to go against people with guns. And John Stossel, the same reporter from Fox and ABC, also wrote in the same article that Canada and Britain were among some of the toughest gun control places, and half of burglaries occurred while residents were at home. And in the United States, only 13% of burglaries happened while residents were home. So it shows that burglars are most likely to attack knowing people don't have guns with them. And in another piece of evidence by BBC.UK, United Kingdom, in the United Kingdom, 40% of crimes rose after 2 years when weapons were banned. And in another study, or another example, in 2002, at the Appalachian School of Law, 2 students heard gunshots at their school, and they ran to their car to get their guns, and they were able to restrain the shooter until the police came and arrested him. So in this case, citizens' availability of guns helped people from being killed and hurt. And for my last piece of evidence, the CNN reported that the National Academy of Sciences reviewed many journals, books, and government publications evaluating gun control, and researchers could not identify a single regulation that reduced violent crime, suicide, or accidents. So strict gun control would not benefit the United States because crime rates could potentially rise and many would feel less safe.
All right, you've got a good counterclaim at the beginning of the speech that you're going to be relying on throughout the presentation, and I think that that's probably the right strategy. Although I do think that you need to address the advocate's evidence a little bit more frequently. Sometimes it seems like you are just going, here's what the advocate's argument is, and then here's the counterclaim on that, without analyzing whether or not the advocate actually supported the point that they were presenting. Most of the counterclaims, I think, are pretty effectively developed. You've got evidence on each of the points. It did feel like you got to this issue about self-defense in 2 or 3 different places instead of having it in a singular place, and as a consequence it may not have felt quite as strongly developed as it probably would be if it was all put in the same place. But there was one spot, for instance, when you're talking about the laws of Great Britain and Canada and the amount of burglaries that occur and that sort of thing, I thought that that was applied pretty effectively to the argument about the need for additional laws. The accidents issue is the only one that I thought that you largely skimped over. Everything else you had good counterclaims on. On the accidents issue, you basically have a counter assertion, and I think that there's probably more that you can do on that particular point. And I did think that you had a nice summary, and that piece of evidence from the NAS is a pretty effective way of responding to all the generic arguments being presented by the advocate.